All right, so today we're talking about suckers. That's up next. Hello everyone, this is Dwayne with Edge of Nowhere Farm, and we're coming to you here this morning. It's the beginning of June 2019. I'll tell you what, just a beautiful, beautiful spring for us here in Arizona. You know, one of the things that we had this last winter was just a tremendous amount of rain. We got it every single week, week after week, which was fantastic. Love it. One of the things we're challenged with, however, going here into summertime, the peak of our growth season, is we have sucker growth on a lot of our trees, which is actually a little unusual for us. So what I wanted to do this morning was talk to you a little bit about suckers, how to identify them, what they are, and what to do about them. And really, do we even need to deal with them? So this is our Pink Lady apple tree. We haven't talked about this tree before in detail. In fact, maybe not at all. But this is a fall apple variety that we have. It does okay. We haven't gotten a lot of fruit off of it. However, it does grow real strong, especially during the summertime. So it's a perfect example of sucker growth. In fact, what you see below me here would be sucker growth. So now sucker growth, what is that? So in a grafted variety, which your apple varieties basically are always grafted. Apple varieties that are grafted onto a rootstock. You have the rootstock which grows into the ground, and it's selected for different reasons. It has specific traits so that it grows aggressively in a specific type of soil or environment, etc. So that grows very strong and very aggressive. And then what they do is they take the Pink Lady, basically a twig or a branch off of a Pink Lady variety, and they graft it or attach it to that rootstock. And that's what you usually buy in the store. So what we're dealing with when we're dealing with sucker growth is we're dealing with growth from the rootstock. So that rootstock, which is very aggressive, is essentially trying to take over. And so you can see we've got a lot of sucker growth in here in this Pink Lady variety. So let's talk a little bit more about identifying and dealing with sucker growth. So the easiest way to identify it is growth that's coming either from the ground or coming from the base of the tree. And what we're really looking at more than anything is anything below that graft point. You can actually see the graft point on this tree. It's pretty obvious. So you can see here we have the graft, which is right here. Pretty easy to identify on this tree because you go from the flare of the roots down here, so where the roots flare out and go out this way, it comes up and it starts to basically flatten out into the trunk. So this is our Pink Lady here. This is the grafting point on this tree. Down here would be the rootstock. And you can see all this growth that I have right here is all coming from the ground. So easiest way to identify it, I know this is below that graft point, so I know this is sucker growth. This is the rootstock basically trying to come back up and essentially take over, and that's not what I want. I want Pink Lady. I want Pink Lady apples, not whatever apple variety this is. Second way of identifying, if you're not too sure about that grafting point, obviously if you're pruning your tree, a typical tree like this, pretty easy to determine because it's low growth. You would probably be trimming that away anyway. But another way to look at it is to actually look at the leaves. So now that's not always easy. So for example, I'm looking at these leaves right now, and I've got a leaf here that's pretty wide. Looking at the tree itself, I've got new growth here. So if I look at this leaf here, a little bit narrower, so the leaf itself is not quite as wide. So for me, even if I didn't know the grafting point, looking at this new growth, looking at this growth down here, the leaves feel thinner. They're not as thick as these. They're a little wider, and just, again, of course, where it's at, but looking at the leaf growth, so the actual leaf itself, is another way to identify sucker growth. Now that we've identified the suckers on this tree, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we can get as much of that sucker growth off. So, timing. We're here at the beginning of June. For us in Arizona, obviously a lot of these trees are going to be growing very aggressively because they love that heat. Also, it's very dry here. So for us, we can really do this anytime, but I try to do it in June when we're very dry and hot, because I know anything that I'm cutting off of here is going to have the least amount of chance for you to actually get any type of bacterial or fungal infections into the tree itself, because we're cutting down here at the base of the tree where you could have moisture. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go ahead and pull back all of these wood chips that are around the trunk so we can get down into where the sucker growth is growing and try to snip it as low as we can. I have the wood chips pulled back. I did pull a little bit of the dirt back as well. So one of the things that we talked about briefly, very, very briefly, is planting depth on your trees. Now, planting depth is not something I paid much attention to when we first started planting trees because I didn't really know any better. I knew not to get above the graft point, but what I really didn't know is how deep to get it to make sure you're dealing with the root flare at the ground level. So one of the reasons why that's so important is dealing with sucker growth, which is where we're at now. Basically, you can see the root flare. So you can see the rootstock here, and you can see how the root flares out this way. So that's where the roots begin to go out. Fruit tree roots go out, not so much deep. They're mainly going out, so they're horizontal. One of the many advantages to planting at the right depth is I can get to my sucker growth very, very easily. And going around the tree, pretty much all of them are right here at at the point where the flare goes down into the ground. I'm just going to start here. So I'm just going to take my Corona pruners, start here, and I want to clip this right against the trunk. That's mulch. Okay, so that's it. Very, very simple. So you can see I try to take those suckers off as close to the trunk as I possibly can. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna leave this whole area with the dirt pulled back, with the wood chips pulled back, I'm gonna leave this completely open. Today we're gonna get to about 95 degrees or so. It's 10% humidity, so it's gonna dry up quick. Last thing we want right now is to have this up against the trunk, get rain, which we rarely get, but get any type of rain to make this damp and have the ability, any type of fungal infection get into the tree, because when you're dealing with the trunk right down here at the roots, you have a serious problem if you're gonna have fungus going into the tree here, so potentially could kill the entire tree. So we wanna make sure, nice dry day, get down here, leave the space open, let it dry completely so we don't have any chance of that. So just want to thank you for joining us today. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. Instagram and Facebook, we post content there you won't see here on the YouTube channel. Questions or comments, leave them in the comment section down below. And our Amazon shop, I'm going to leave a link in the description below. It doesn't matter what you buy, if you use that link, the next time you shop on Amazon, you help support the channel here. So just want to thank you for joining us today and remind you, if we can farm on the edge of nowhere, so can you.